This is my recipe for the best vegan cheesecake you will ever eat, and it has a berry compote topping on top, so it's extra delicious. Start by adding your cookies into your food processor. I like to use these ones from Trader Joe's. They're like a dupe for the biscoff cookies, but any will do. Now you're going to melt your vegan butter and add that into your food processor as well. And by the way, all the correct measurements and instructions will be listed in the caption. You're going to add that in there, and then you're also going to add a little bit of salt and some sugar. And I'm using salted butter, so I added less salt, but if you're using unsalted butter, add more salt. We're going to pulse this in a food processor until it kind of reaches this wet sand texture. It should be a little bit crumbly, but also stick together in your hands. Line your springform pan with parchment paper. Mine is 8 inches, and you can also use a cake tin or an oven-safe dish as long as it fits your entire crust, but it might be a little bit trickier to remove it. And make sure you flatten your crust down with your silicone spatula so that it's completely flat, and also make sure that it kind of goes up the sides a little bit so that you have that nice crust layer. I know biscoff cookies are unconventional, but I love the molassesy flavor it brings and also its dark color. Let your crust set in the fridge while we work on our filling. Instead of cream cheese, I'm going to be using silken tofu because it's really flavorless and has the perfect texture. We're adding an entire block of silken tofu, so we're definitely meeting our protein goals, but you do want to make sure your blender is a high-powered blender like a Vitamix so that it gets the creamiest consistency. To add to that velvety texture of cheesecake, we're going to be instantly boiling cashews instead of soaking them by microwaving your water for about 1.5 minutes and adding in your cashews and just letting them sit there for 5 to 10 minutes while you add the rest of the ingredients. It works wonders. So we're going to be setting our soaking cashews aside, and then we're going to be adding in some non-dairy milk. Now, I wholeheartedly prefer oat milk just because it has the best creamy consistency, and it's also, again, flavorless. You will be fine using soy milk, but I wouldn't recommend using like coconut milk or anything. I have made this with yogurt in the past, and it came out really well, but sometimes it's hard to access some good quality vegan yogurt, so you can always stick to oat milk. We're going to be adding in some maple syrup now. That is my preferred natural sweetener. You could definitely use agave syrup, or you could just use normal sugar. And we're adding not that much because honestly, the actual filling doesn't need to be too sweet because we have that berry compote on top. But again, you could adjust for as much sweetness as you'd like. Now we're going to be adding in lemon juice. So lemon juice is really critical in this recipe because it's going to give it that sour flavor that you get from cream cheese. You should try to add fresh lemon juice. I didn't have fresh lemon juice, so that's why I added some from the store, but I am adding some fresh lime zest. And lime zest is super important because it's going to give it a really nice citrusy flavor. We're going to be adding in vanilla extract. You want to make sure your vanilla extract is pure and doesn't have any alcohol in it. That just will make the flavor better. And if you have like vanilla bean or whatever, you should definitely add that instead because this is the primary flavor maker in this cheesecake. I'm adding in my drained cashews, and I literally felt them and they were so soft, so it's going to be perfect for this recipe. So here I was so excited to blend this cheesecake filling finally when I realized that I forgot the most critical ingredient, which was cornstarch. So cornstarch is a thickener, and in this recipe it's super important because it's going to give the cheesecake that gelatinous type of texture that we all love. So I did end up adding it. Again, all the detailed measurements will be in the caption, but yeah, make sure you don't forget cornstarch because it's super important. And then I kind of switched to the pulse setting of my Vitamix until I got the desired texture. You will have to make sure to scrape down the sides, just classic practices whenever you're making a filling in a blender. But you should end up, after this nice time slap, you should end up with a really nice kind of creamy texture. And again, this is our set crust. You want to make sure it's really nice and set, nothing's crumbly, and then we can pour in our mixture. Obviously, it looks like we do right now, but we are going to be baking it. We're going to be preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 50 minutes. You can also do this earlier, but my oven doesn't take that long to preheat. While our oven is preheating, we're going to be wrapping our springform pan with aluminum foil. The reason you do this is to prevent the pan from leaking since a lot of water gets released. So you're going to want to wrap the bottom and sides of this. This is how it should look, and now we're going to be popping this into our oven and letting it bake for 50 minutes. While our cheesecake is baking, we can work on our berry compote. So this is going to be consisting of strawberries. We're going to start by chopping our fresh strawberries. You don't need to chop them finely, just you can either halve them or quarter them because we're also going to be using some frozen strawberries, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to set a thick bottom pan on the stove on medium-high heat, and then we're going to be adding in our frozen strawberries. So this is going to create a really nice jammy texture, and it works super well when paired with the fresh strawberries. Now we're going to add in our fresh strawberries that we cut up, and we're going to let them sit here, stirring frequently until the liquid kind of starts to release from here. Now we're going to add in our maple syrup or any other liquid sweetener of your choice. This is also going to help create a really nice texture and add some sweetness. Give this a slight mix before we add in our vanilla extract. Again, this is going to create a really nice flavor. Now it's time to add in our lemon juice. You should definitely try to use fresh lemon juice, as this is going to help create that jammy quality and also add a little bit of tartness. We're going to add in some lime zest or lemon zest. This is going to add to that lemon citrusy quality. We're going to give this a good mix, and you can already see that the liquid is getting released because of the help from the maple syrup and our lemon juice, and it's starting to look really yummy. Now we're going to be adding in cornstarch. This is extremely important to thicken our compote and make sure it's nice and jammy. Give everything a nice stir, and you can also start to mash some of the frozen strawberries once they get nice and soft. We're also going to lower the heat and kind of just let this sit for a while. It's been a couple of minutes. You can see how much this has reduced. So we're just going to turn the heat off, and I have some fresh strawberries that I cut for topping. Okay, this is how our baked cheesecake is looking like. The texture is really nice, and you know the cheesecake is done when you shake it and it's still a little bit jiggly in the middle, but the outside is nice and golden brown. So once it has cooled off, we're going to remove our aluminum foil around it. Make sure it's cool because it will be pretty hot. Okay, this is how our compote and cheesecake are looking, so now it's time to assemble it. I have my compote here, and I'm going to be adding dollops of it on my cheesecake. You really can just go crazy, pour the whole thing, whatever you want, since this is going to be completely covering our cheesecake. I'm using a spoon to assemble it properly, and now I'm going to be arranging the strawberries on top. These are obviously optional, but I do think they add a nice little freshness to it, and they make it look super cute. Okay, now we're going to be wrapping our cheesecake with some plastic wrap so that it's able to set in the fridge and cool down. You want to make sure it's in the fridge for at least 2 hours so that it is completely cool and ready for you to enjoy. Okay, it's been the time for it to set, and look at how beautiful our cheesecake is looking. So I'm just using an offset spatula to carefully remove it from the springform pan. Now all that's left to do is cut out a gigantic slice for yourself. This one was pretty modest, but I'm so excited to try this. This is how our slice is looking. You can see the beautiful crust, filling, and compote layer. It tasted amazing. I hope you try this out.